I should have known better than to open mail at midnight, but sleep had become a luxury I couldn't afford. The envelope was cream-colored, thick as a wedding invitation, and stamped with a seal I didn't recognize. Inside, a single page that would change everything. Final notice. Account 749, MEDAL amount due, $287,430. My hands trembled. $287,000. The number had haunted me for months, growing like a tumor with each passing week. Medical school tuition. My mother's cancer treatments. My father's heart surgery that insurance deemed elective. The American healthcare system had chewed through our family like we were nothing. Like and subscribe if you love listening these stories. I pressed my palms against my eyes until I saw stars. My dorm room smelled like instant ramen and desperation, the walls covered in anatomy diagrams I'd studied until my vision blurred. 4 years of perfect grades, volunteer hours at 3 hospitals, recommendation letters from department heads, none of it mattered if I couldn't pay. The meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m. I wore my only professional outfit, a navy blazer with a loose button that I'd safety pinned from the inside. The hospital's administrative wing gleamed with polished floors and the kind of sterile luxury that reminded you exactly who held the power. Mrs. Chen, the financial administrator, didn't waste time on pleasantries. She was a woman carved from efficiency, her manicured nails clicking against the desk as she pulled up my file. Miss Ahmed, we've been more than patient. Your payment plan has defaulted for the 3rd consecutive month. I know. I'm working double shifts at the campus clinic, and I've applied for additional student loans, which were denied. Her eyes held no malice, just the cold arithmetic of an institution that couldn't afford sentiment. Lena, you're a brilliant student. Everyone says so. But brilliance doesn't pay bills. I felt something crack inside my chest. What are my options? She slid a folder across the desk. Not my medical file. Something else. There's been an inquiry. A private benefactor interested in unconventional philanthropy. The word hung in the air like smoke. I opened the folder with numb fingers. Marriage contract, read the header in elegant script. I must have misread it. I'm sorry, what is this? Exactly what it says. A legal marriage arrangement. The terms are straightforward. You marry the designated party, maintain the appearance of a legitimate union for a minimum of 1 year, and in exchange, all your debts are cleared. Immediately. You'll also receive a monthly stipend of $15,000. My brain stuttered, trying to process the words. This can't be legal. It's perfectly legal. Arranged marriages happen every day, Miss Ahmed. This is simply more transparent about the transaction. Mrs. Chen leaned back, her expression softening by a fraction. I'm not saying you should do it. I'm saying it's an option. You have 48 hours to decide. I walked out of that office in a daze, the folder burning against my ribs where I'd tucked it into my bag. The autumn air bit at my face as I crossed campus, but I barely felt it. Students laughed and complained about exams that suddenly seemed absurdly trivial. What was organic chemistry compared to selling yourself to a stranger? That night, I called my mother. Her voice was thin, stretched across the miles and medications. Habibti, you sound tired. Are you eating enough? I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell her everything. Instead, I lied. I'm fine, Mama. How are you feeling? Better. The new treatment is helping, I think. Your father sends his love. My father, who'd worked construction for 30 years, and whose hands now shook too badly to hold a hammer. My mother, who taught elementary school and baked cookies for every neighborhood kid, now reduced to clinical trial roulette. After we hung up, I opened the folder again. Read every word of the contract 3 times. The groom's name was redacted. The marriage would be legally binding but discreet. I would live in his residence. I would make public appearances as required. I would not discuss the arrangement with anyone. And in exchange, my family would be free. The cafe where I met the lawyers smelled like overpriced espresso and quiet desperation mine. He was younger than I expected, sharp-featured with a kind of watch that cost more than my entire education. He introduced himself as Mr. Lassiter and ordered us both cappuccinos I couldn't taste. You've read the terms? His voice was smooth, practiced. Yes. But I don't understand why. Why me? Why would anyone pay this much for a fake marriage? The arrangement benefits both parties. My client requires a wife with certain qualifications. You require financial relief. It's elegantly simple. What qualifications? My pulse hammered. What does he want from me? Discretion. Intelligence. A believable narrative. He stirred his coffee with methodical precision. My client is a very private person. He needs a partner who can navigate his world without unnecessary complications. His world, I repeated. What world is that? One, you'll become acquainted with after you sign. The circular logic made my head spin. Every question led back to the same answer. Trust us. Sign here, your problems disappear. It was too convenient. Too perfect. Every instinct screamed that I was walking into a trap. Then my phone buzzed. A text from my father's cardiologist. Need to discuss payment options for scheduled procedure. Please call. The procedure that would save his life. The procedure we couldn't afford. My hand reached for the pen before my brain caught up. There's no physical expectation, right? The contract says separate quarters. My client is not interested in that kind of arrangement, Mr. Lassiter assured me. This is a legal and financial partnership. Nothing more. I should have asked more questions. I should have demanded to meet this mysterious client, should have hired my own lawyer, should have done 1,000 things differently. But desperation makes you stupid, and I was drowning. The pen felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. My signature, Lena Marie Ahmed, looked small and fragile on the heavy paper. Mr. Lassiter smiled for the first time, and something about it made my stomach turn. Excellent. The ceremony is scheduled for Saturday. You'll be collected at 6 a.m. This Saturday? That's 2 days from now. My client prefers not to delay. He slid a black credit card across the table. For any immediate needs. Congratulations, Miss Ahmed. Your life is about to change considerably. I left the cafe, with the card burning in my pocket and the taste of ashes in my mouth. That night, I told my roommate I was visiting family for the weekend. I packed a single suitcase, not knowing if I'd ever come back. My anatomy textbook sat open on my desk, a diagram of the human heart exposed in all its vulnerable complexity. How fitting. Saturday morning arrived too quickly. The car that pulled up to my dorm was black, expensive, and deeply anonymous. The driver didn't speak, just opened the door with the practiced courtesy of someone who served power. As we pulled away from campus, from my life, I watched students stumbling back from Friday night parties and felt impossibly distant from them. Where are we going? I asked. The estate, miss. Can you tell me anything about him? The driver's eyes met mine in the rearview mirror. You'll know soon enough. We drove for over an hour, the city giving way to manicured suburbs, then to countryside that smelled of old money and older secrets. When we turned through iron gates that could have guarded a fortress, my heart climbed into my throat. The mansion rose before us, like something from a dream or a warning. 3 stories of pale stone and architectural ambition, windows glinting like watching eyes, gardens sprawled in geometric perfection. Fountains murmured with obscene wealth. Please, miss. The driver had come around to open my door. They're waiting. My legs felt disconnected from my body as I climbed the stone steps. The doors opened before I could knock, revealing a woman in elegant black who must have been the housekeeper. Miss Ahmed, this way. The interior stole my breath. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, art that belonged in museums. We walked through corridors that echoed with my cheap heels, past rooms I couldn't begin to name. Finally, we entered a private suite where a team of people descended on me, like beautiful locusts. We'll need to prepare you, someone said, and suddenly I was being measured, dressed, painted. The gown they laced me into was the color of champagne, delicate as spiderweb and probably worth more than my car. They pinned my dark hair up, applied makeup with an artist's precision, hung diamonds at my throat that felt like ice. I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize myself. It's time, the housekeeper announced. They led me to a room that had been transformed into something between a chapel and a stage. Chairs lined with white silk, flowers spilling from every surface, and people, dozens of them, strangers in expensive suits and dresses, watching me with expressions I couldn't read. At the front, beside an officiant in formal robes, stood a man with his back to me. The music started. Someone pressed a bouquet into my shaking hands. I walked forward because there was nowhere else to go, each step carrying me further from any life I'd known. The man turned. Time stopped. I knew that face. Everyone knew that face. Adrian Moretti. His name was whispered in business journals and true crime podcasts. Tech billionaire. Real estate magnate. And if you believed the rumors, the kind spoken in hushed tones by people who knew better, the head of one of the most powerful crime families on the East Coast. He was younger than his photos suggested, maybe 35, with dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble, sharp cheekbones, a mouth that looked like it had forgotten how to smile, and eyes, God, his eyes the color of smoke and steel, watching me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. This was my husband. I must have made a sound, because his expression shifted by a millimeter. Not quite amusement. More like recognition of my shock. The officiant began speaking. Words about commitment and partnership flowed over me like water. I couldn't process them. My entire world had narrowed to the man standing 18 inches away, close enough that I could smell his cologne, something dark and expensive that probably cost more than my education. Miss Ahmed? The officiant was looking at me expectantly. Right. My vows. I do. The words scraped out of my throat. Adrian's turn. His voice was exactly what I'd feared. Deep, controlled, with an edge that suggested violence sleeping just beneath the surface. I do. The rings appeared. His fingers were steady as he slid the band onto my hand, platinum, set with diamonds that caught the light like accusations. When it was my turn, my hands shook so badly I nearly dropped his ring. He caught it, our fingers touching for the first time, and electricity shot up my arm. His skin was warm. Somehow I'd expected him to be cold. You may kiss the bride. Horror must have shown on my face, because Adrian leaned in, his breath warm against my ear, and whispered so only I could hear, smile. They're watching. Then his lips brushed mine. Barely a kiss. More like a brand. Cameras flashed. People applauded. And just like that, I became Mrs. Adrian Moretti, wife to a man I'd never met, bound to a world I didn't understand. The reception was a blur of champagne I couldn't drink, and conversations I couldn't follow. Adrian kept me at his side with a hand at the small of my back, possessive, guiding. To everyone else, we must have looked like any wealthy couple on their wedding day. Only I could feel the tension in his touch, the way his eyes constantly scanned the room like he was calculating threats. Smile more, he murmured during a toast. You look terrified. I am terrified, I hissed back. Good. That means you're not stupid. Finally, mercifully, the guests departed. Adrian led me through the mansion's corridors in silence, our footsteps echoing off marble that probably cost more per square foot than my entire degree. We climbed a grand staircase, turned down a hallway lined with paintings I was too overwhelmed to appreciate. He stopped before a door. Your quarters. The suite beyond was larger than my entire apartment back home. King bed dressed in silk. A sitting area with furniture that belonged in magazines. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking gardens that glowed in the twilight. The closet is stocked. Bathroom through there. If you need anything, there's a phone on the nightstand. Adrian's tone was clinical, like he was describing a hotel room. Someone will bring your meals unless you prefer to eat in the main dining room. Wait, I found my voice. What happens now? He turned, and for a moment, just a moment, something almost human flickered across his face. Now you settle in, rest. Tomorrow we'll discuss the rules. Rules? Boundaries. Expectations. How this arrangement will work. He moved toward the door. There are parts of the house you're not permitted to enter. The east wing is private. My office is off limits. And Lena? My name in his mouth felt strange. Intimate. Don't try to leave the grounds. for your own safety." Then he was gone, the door clicking shut with a finality that sounded like a cell locking. I stood in the middle of my gilded cage and tried to remember how to breathe. Through the windows, I could see the estate stretching into darkness, beautiful, manicured, and ringed with walls too high to climb. Somewhere in the gardens, I caught movement. Security guards, maybe. Or something else. I moved to the closet because I didn't know what else to do. It was filled with clothes I hadn't chosen, designer labels, my exact size, in colors and styles that somehow captured my taste perfectly. Someone had studied me, learned me. The thought made my skin crawl. On the nightstand, beside the phone Adrian had mentioned, I found a small stack of papers. My medical school bills, each one stamped paid in full. My parents' hospital invoices, cleared. The lease on the apartment we were about to lose, purchased outright. He'd already paid. All of it. Before I'd even said, "I do." I sank onto the bed and let myself cry for the first time in months. Not from sadness. From the overwhelming weight of what I'd done, what I'd traded, my freedom for my family's survival, my future for their present. Somewhere in this massive house, Adrian Moretti was doing whatever mafia bosses did at night. And I was his wife. The word felt like a lie and a shackle all at once. Sleep didn't come. I lay in sheets that probably cost more than a car, staring at a ceiling painted with frescoes I was too numb to appreciate. Every sound made me jump: footsteps in the hallway, voices murmuring in Italian, the distant thud of a door closing. Around 3 a.m., I gave up and explored my suite. The bathroom was obscene marble everywhere, a tub big enough to swim in, products from brands I'd only seen in magazines. The sitting room had a bookshelf stocked with medical texts and literary fiction, another sign that someone had done their homework on who I was, who I'd been. I pressed my forehead against the cool window glass and studied the gardens below. In the moonlight, I could make out paths winding between sculpted hedges, the glint of the fountain, and there a figure moving between shadows. A guard. Definitely. Making rounds. This beautiful prison had guards. Morning arrived with a knock at my door. A young woman in house staff uniform entered with a breakfast tray. "Good morning, Mrs. Moretti. I'm Elena. I'll be helping you settle in, Mrs. Moretti." The name sounded wrong in every language. "Thank you," I managed. "Elena, can I ask you something? How long have you worked here?" 3 years, ma'am." "And Mr. Moretti, what's he like? As an employer?" Elena's expression shuddered so quickly I almost missed it. "He's very generous, ma'am. We're well cared for." The words were perfect. Too perfect. Rehearsed. She was afraid of him. After she left, I picked at breakfast, fresh fruit, pastries that melted on the tongue, coffee that tasted like it cost more than my textbooks. Everything was perfect. Everything was wrong. At noon, Elena returned. "Mr. Moretti requests your presence for dinner, 7 p.m., in the main dining hall. I'll help you dress." The day crawled by. I tried to read, couldn't focus. Tried to plan, couldn't think. Mostly I paced my beautiful cage and wondered what I'd say to the stranger I'd married. Elena returned at 6 with a dress deep emerald, elegant but not revealing. She styled my hair, touched up my makeup, and the entire time I felt like a doll being prepared for display. "You look beautiful, ma'am," she said softly. "Don't be nervous. Mr. Moretti isn't as frightening as people say." The fact that she felt the need to say it made everything worse. The dining hall was absurd, a table that could seat 20, lit by candelabras that belonged in a castle. Adrian was already there, standing by the window with a glass of wine, dressed in black that made him look like an elegant threat. He turned as I entered, and his eyes tracked over me with an assessment that felt almost clinical. "That color suits you." "Thank you." It came out like a question. He pulled out a chair. I sat, hyper-aware of his proximity as he took his own seat at the head of the table. Staff appeared with the first course, something French and complicated that I couldn't identify. "You didn't sleep," Adrian observed. "Not a question. How did you? You have circles under your eyes, and you've been pacing. Elena told me the books in your room haven't been moved. So he was having me watched," reported on. The food turned to ash in my mouth. I imagine you have questions, he continued, swirling his wine. 1,000. Ask. I set down my fork. Why me? Specifically me. There must be thousands of people who need money. You had the right profile. Medical student, clean record, no family in organized crime, no social media presence worth noting. You're smart enough to navigate my world, but not connected enough to pose a security risk. So I was vetted like a security clearance. Thoroughly. The honesty was somehow worse than a lie. And what exactly is your world, Mr. Moretti? His smile was sharp enough to cut. I think you know. Or you've guessed. They say I couldn't finish the sentence. Say it, Mafia. The word fell between us like a stone in still water. Adrian leaned back, entirely at ease with my accusation. Such a dramatic term. I prefer businessman with diversified interests. That's not a denial. No, he agreed. It's not. My heart hammered. So I'm what a trophy wife. Cover for your illegal activities? Your legitimacy. A respected medical professional, daughter of working-class immigrants, human interest story. The media loves a Cinderella tale. He took a sip of wine. You make me look stable, domestic. Less threatening. I'm window dressing. Your protection, he corrected. For both of us. My enemies will think twice before acting if collateral damage includes an innocent student, and you, his eyes locked on mine. You're safer here than you would be if you'd refused. The temperature in the room dropped. Is that a threat? It's a reality. The moment that contract was offered, you became visible to people you don't want to meet. Accepting put you under my protection. Refusing would have left you exposed. He paused. I don't make threats, Lena. I state facts. I should have been terrified. I was. But beneath the fear, something else stirred anger. You manipulated me, used my desperation. I offered you a choice. You made it. That's not fair. No, he agreed quietly. It's not. But it's done. We ate in silence for a few minutes. The food was incredible and tasted like nothing. The rules, Adrian said finally. First, you don't leave the estate without security. Ever. Second, the East Wing is restricted. My office, my private quarters. You don't go there. Third, you don't discuss our arrangement with anyone outside these walls. Not friends, not family. As far as the world knows, we're a love match. That's absurd. No one will believe, they'll believe what we show them. He stood, moving around the table until he was close enough to touch. I forced myself not to flinch. We'll be seen together. Events, dinners, charitable functions. You'll smile. I'll be attentive. We'll sell the fiction. And if I refuse? His hand came up, and I braced for I don't know what. But he only tucked a loose strand of hair behind my ear, the gesture so unexpectedly gentle that I froze. You won't, he said softly. Because you're smart enough to know that both our lives depend on the performance. His fingers lingered against my cheek for half a heartbeat, then he stepped back. Get some rest, Lena. Tomorrow we start building your new wardrobe. We have a gala next week. He left me alone in that cavernous dining room, my face still warm from where he'd touched me, my mind spinning with everything I didn't understand. That night, I dreamed of cages made of gold and doors I couldn't find. The week passed in a surreal blur. Elena took me shopping, if you could call it that, when guards flanked us and store owners cleared entire boutiques for our arrival. I was measured, dressed, photographed. Adrian joined us once, appeared at my side as I modeled an evening gown, and the way his expression shifted when he saw me made something in my stomach flip. That one was all he said. But the designer beamed like she'd won the lottery. I learned the rhythms of the house. Staff moved like ghosts, appearing when needed and vanishing when not. Adrian kept strange hours sometimes. I'd hear him in the hallways at 3 a.m., voice low and sharp as he spoke in Italian to people I never saw. The East Wing remained locked, forbidden, perpetually mysterious, and at night, alone in my suite, I studied the man I'd married through scraps of information. Online, Adrian Moretti was a tech genius who'd built a social media empire before 30, sold it for billions, then diversified into real estate, restaurants, private security. Forbes called him a visionary. The Wall Street Journal praised his business acumen, but in the dark corners of the internet, other stories lurked. Whispers about families he'd absorbed, rivals who'd disappeared, judges and politicians in his pocket. Nothing proven. Everything suspected. I was married to a ghost wrapped in expensive suits. The night of the gala, Elena helped me into a gown that made me look like I belonged in Adrian's world, midnight blue silk that hugged every curve I had and suggested others. Diamonds glittered at my throat, borrowed or bought, I didn't know. "You'll be the most beautiful woman there," Elena assured me. I wanted to throw up. Adrian knocked at 8. When I opened the door, the way his eyes widened for just a fraction of a second before controls slammed back into place made me feel powerful and terrified at once. "Shall we?" He offered his arm. The car ride was silent. Adrian kept his attention on his phone, firing off texts in Italian while I watched the city lights blur past. We pulled up to a museum that had been transformed for the evening, red carpet lined with photographers screaming questions. "Remember," Adrian murmured as the door opened. "You adore me. I'm devoted to you. We're the perfect couple." Then we stepped into the flashbulbs, and I became someone else. His hand at my waist felt possessive as we posed. When reporters shouted questions, Adrian smiled, an expression I hadn't seen before, charming and utterly fake. "How did you two meet?" "Luck," Adrian answered smoothly. "I saw her at a hospital charity event and knew I had to know her. Lena makes me want to be a better man." The lie was so polished, I almost believed it. Inside, the gala was a parade of wealth and influence. Politicians, celebrities, tech moguls who probably knew Adrian's real business. Everyone wanted his attention. Everyone assessed me with curiosity and calculation. "Adrian, you dark horse, married without telling anyone." A silver-haired man clapped Adrian's shoulder too hard. "And who is this vision?" "My wife, Lena." "Lena, this is Senator Griffith." The senator's eyes traveled over me in a way that made my skin crawl. "Medical student, I heard." Quite the Cinderella story. "Lena earned her place," Adrian said coolly, and something in his tone made the senator's smile falter. We circulated through the crowd. Adrian introduced me to more people than I could track, names that I recognized from news cycles and scandal. His hand never left me, guiding me through conversations like I was something precious he needed to protect. When a reporter cornered us, asking about our whirlwind romance, Adrian pulled me close and pressed a kiss to my temple that felt disturbingly real. "When you know, he told the camera. I was saved by the dinner service. We sat at a table with tech executives and their spouses, everyone performing sophistication. Adrian was different here, charming, engaged, asking about families and ventures with what seemed like genuine interest. This was another mask, I realized. Another version of the man with 1,000 faces. Halfway through the main course, his phone buzzed. He checked it discreetly, and I watched his expression turn to stone. "Excuse me." He leaned close to whisper in my ear, "Don't leave this table. Marcus will stay with you." Then he was gone, moving through the crowd with predatory grace. Marcus materialized at my shoulder, one of the guards, I'd learned. Built like a wall, silent as death. "Is everything all right?" asked the woman across from me, some tech CEO's wife. "Oh, just business," I said lightly. "You know how it is." But I didn't know. That was the problem. Adrian returned 20 minutes later, his charm back in place, but something dangerous lurking in his eyes. When he touched my hand, his fingers were ice cold. "Tired?" he asked. I nodded, grateful for the escape. In the car, the mask dropped. Adrian stared out the window, jaw tight, one hand clenched into a fist against his thigh. "What happened?" I asked quietly. "Nothing you need to worry about. I'm not stupid." "Something's wrong." He turned to look at me, then really look, and I saw something that might have been respect flicker across his face. "There are people who don't want me to have nice things. They send reminders." "What kind of reminders?" "The kind that mean you don't go anywhere without security." The kind that mean I was right to marry you. His eyes held mine. You're valuable now, Lena. To me, which means to them. Fear crystallized in my chest. Should I be scared? You should be careful. He reached across the seat and took my hand the first time he'd touched me without an audience. But I won't let anything happen to you. That's not an empty promise. The strange thing was, I believed him. That night, I couldn't sleep. The gala had been exhausting, the undercurrents of danger even more so. Around midnight, I gave up and wandered down to the kitchen for water, moving quietly through the darkened house. I'd just filled a glass when I heard voices low, tense, speaking Italian. They were coming from the direction of the garden. Against every instinct that screamed to go back to my room, I followed the sound. Through the glass doors, I could see shadowy figures on the terrace, Adrian and two men I didn't recognize. Their body language was aggressive, confrontational. I couldn't understand the words, but the tone was unmistakable. A threat. One of the men made a gesture sharp, violent. Adrian remained utterly still, but I could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his hand had moved incrementally closer to his jacket. Then I saw the third man. He'd appeared from the gardens, moving with the fluid grace of someone trained for violence. He had a gun. Everything happened in slow motion and lightning fast at once. The man raised his weapon. Someone shouted. Adrian moved, impossibly quick, but not quick enough. I yanked open the terrace door and screamed, Adrian. Heads whipped toward me. The gunman's attention broke for just a second. It was enough. Adrian had him on the ground before I could blink, the weapon clattering across stone. His guards appeared from everywhere, descending on the other men like shadows given form. There was shouting, struggling, the sick sound of fist meeting flesh. Then Adrian was in front of me, his hands on my shoulders, his face terrifyingly calm. Get back inside. Now. He was going to, Lena. Inside. But I couldn't move. I was frozen, watching his guards drag the attackers away, seeing the gun lying on the stone like an accusation. Adrian's hand cupped my face, forcing me to look at him. Breathe. Look at me. Breathe. I dragged in air that felt like broken glass. They were going to kill you. But they didn't. Because you warned me. Something shifted in his eyes, surprise, maybe. Or recognition. You saved my life. I started shaking then, the adrenaline crash hitting like a truck. Adrian caught me as my knees gave out, lifting me like I weighed nothing. He carried me inside, past staff who appeared and vanished. Upstairs I barely registered, until we were in a room I'd never seen. His room. The forbidden territory. He set me on a leather sofa and pressed a glass of whiskey into my hands. Drink. I obeyed. The alcohol burned, but it cut through the shock. Adrian knelt before me, still in his expensive suit, blood on his knuckles that wasn't his. Why did you come downstairs? Couldn't sleep, heard voices. I didn't think, no, you didn't. You could have been killed. But his tone wasn't angry. It was something else. Something softer. That was incredibly stupid and incredibly brave. Who were they? People who want what I have. Power. Territory. Control. He took my hand, his thumb brushing over my racing pulse. This is the world you're in now. This is what I meant about being careful. You live like this? Always? Always. I looked at him, really looked. His perfectly styled hair was disheveled. His tie was loose. And his eyes, those steel gray eyes, held exhaustion that ran deeper than one night. How? I whispered. How do you survive it? By being harder than they are. Smarter. More ruthless. He paused. And apparently now by having a wife who screams warnings at exactly the right moment. Despite everything, I almost smiled. I have good timing. You have good instincts. He stood, putting distance between us, but his eyes stayed on mine. You should go back to your room. Get some rest. Will you? Eventually. I stood on shaking legs. At the door, I turned back. Adrian? Thank you. For not letting them hurt me. Lena. His voice stopped me. I meant what I said at the gala. I won't let anything happen to you. That's not part of our arrangement. That's my word. I nodded and fled before I could think too hard about the way my heart had jumped at those words. Back in my suite, I collapsed on the bed fully dressed and stared at the ceiling until dawn. I'd saved Adrian Moretti's life, the Mafia boss, my husband, and somehow, in that moment of violence and fear, something between us had changed. I just wasn't sure if that was better or worse. Morning brought new rules. 2 guards stationed outside my suite. Marcus, or his equivalent, shadowing my every move. Adrian had disappeared into his office before I woke, but he'd left a note on my breakfast tray in sharp, precise handwriting. Thank you. Stay safe. I tucked it into my nightstand drawer like a teenager with a crush, then hated myself for it. The day crawled by in surreal domesticity. I tried to study. My medical texts had been delivered along with my things from the dorm, but concentration was impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that gun rising, heard my own scream echoing. Elena found me in the library that afternoon, staring blankly at a page I hadn't turned in an hour. Mrs. Moretti? Mr. Moretti asked me to give you this. She handed me a phone, new, expensive, with a single number programmed in. He said you can call him anytime. After she left, I held the phone like it might explode. Adrian Moretti had given me a direct line to him. The implications made my head spin. I didn't call, but I kept the phone close. That evening, Adrian joined me for dinner again. We ate in careful silence until finally he set down his fork and looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer honestly. My stomach dropped. Okay. Last night, why did you warn me? You could have stayed hidden. Let events unfold. You'd have been free if I'd died. The question hung in the air like smoke. I put down my own fork, meeting his eyes. Because despite everything, despite this arrangement and the lies, and the fact that you basically bought me, you're still a person. And I'm still someone who takes an oath to do no harm. I paused. Also, I'm starting to think you might be the only thing standing between me and something much worse. Adrian's expression shifted through several emotions too quickly to track, landing on something that might have been admiration. You're more perceptive than I gave you credit for. You keep underestimating me. I'm beginning to think that's a pattern. He actually smiled. Small, but real. Maybe it is. I'll work on that. The moment felt significant, somehow, like we'd crossed an invisible line from strangers to something else. Not friends. Not lovers. But 2 people trapped in the same cage, learning to navigate its boundaries together. I have to go to my office for a few hours, Adrian said, standing. There are logistics to handle after last night. But Lena? I looked up at him. Lock your door tonight. And if anything feels wrong, call me. Immediately. He left before I could respond. I took his advice, locked every lock, checked every window, and lay in bed with my phone on the pillow beside me. Sleep came in fits and starts, full of dreams, where guns fired, and I couldn't scream fast enough. The days that followed fell into an uneasy rhythm. Adrian was busier than before, locked in his office, with men who looked like they could break bones with their smiles, taking calls at all hours in languages I didn't speak. The house hummed with tension I couldn't name. But every evening we had dinner. Just the 2 of us, in that absurd dining hall, eating food I barely tasted while we learned each other in careful increments. I discovered he took his coffee black and drank too much of it, that he spoke 4 languages fluently, that he had a scar on his left hand he wouldn't explain and a habit of rubbing it when he was thinking, that he'd lost his parents young and been raised by an uncle who taught him the family business, emphasis on business, the word weighted with meaning. He learned that I stress-baked but hadn't touched an oven since signing the contract. That I wanted to specialize in pediatric surgery because kids deserve someone who actually cared. That I missed my family with an ache that never quite left. That I'd started sleeping better but still couldn't relax completely. You're waiting for the other shoe to drop, he observed one night. Aren't you? Always. It was the most honest answer he'd given me. A week after the attack, Adrian appeared at my suite before breakfast with a garment bag and an expression that promised I wouldn't like what came next. We're going out. Out where? City. Public appearance. The photos from the gala did well. People are eating up the romance narrative. We need to maintain momentum. I wanted to argue, but the look on his face said this wasn't optional. 2 hours later, I was dressed in designer casual, if such a thing existed, sitting beside Adrian in the back of an SUV with Marcus driving and another car full of security following us. We went to a boutique where Adrian had apparently made a standing appointment. Pick whatever you want, he said. Consider it a belated wedding gift. I don't need more clothes. You need to look the part. He moved closer, voice dropping. I know you hate this. The performance. But every time we're seen together, happy and normal, it makes my enemies think twice. It protects you. It protects both of us. He was right. I hated that he was right. I picked a few things, nothing too expensive, trying to maintain some dignity. Adrian added half the store to the pile when I wasn't looking. Outside, paparazzi had gathered. Cameras flashed as we left. Questions shouted about our marriage, our future, whether I was pregnant yet. That last one made my face burn. Adrian's hand found mine, fingers lacing together, and he smiled at the cameras like he didn't have a care in the world. Give us time, he called out. We're still newlyweds. The photos would be everywhere by nightfall. The perfect couple. The fairy tale marriage. All of it lies. In the car, Adrian's phone buzzed constantly. I watched his expression grow darker with each message. What's wrong? Nothing. He stopped himself. Looked at me. Someone's been asking questions. About you. About us. Trying to find weak points. Your enemies? Maybe. Or someone else. His jaw tightened. I'm going to increase security. You don't go anywhere alone. Not even in the house. Adrian, this is getting insane. This is keeping you alive. His eyes met mine, and they were storm dark. I told you I'd protect you. I meant it. Back at the mansion, the new security was obvious. More guards, more cameras, more locks on doors that had already been locked. I felt the walls closing in, the beautiful prison growing smaller. That night, I couldn't take it anymore. I needed air, space, something that felt like freedom. So, I slipped out of my suite. Marcus was at the door, but I convinced him I just wanted to walk the gardens and found my way to the place I'd been avoiding. The spot where Adrian had almost died. The terrace was peaceful now, lit by soft landscape lighting, the fountain murmuring its endless song. I sat on the stone wall and let myself feel everything I'd been holding back: fear, anger, confusion, and beneath it all, something dangerous I didn't want to name. Can't sleep again? I jumped. Adrian had appeared from the shadows like he'd been conjured, still in his work clothes, looking exhausted and too alert all at once. Sorry. I needed air. He moved to stand beside me, hands in his pockets, staring out at the gardens. I come here sometimes. When it gets too loud in my head. What's loud tonight? Everything. He was quiet for a moment. I'm sorry, Lena, for bringing you into this. You deserved better than to be collateral in someone else's war. The apology caught me off guard. You gave me a choice. Did I, though? He turned to look at me. I knew your situation. Knew you were desperate. Knew you'd have to say yes. That's not really a choice. No, I agreed. But I'm still here. And after last week, I understand why. Do you? I thought about the gunman, the threats, the tension that never quite left this house. You're at war. With someone. Multiple someones. And I'm a piece on the board whether I like it or not. Eloquently put. So what's the endgame? We play house forever? Until someone gets through your security and finishes what they started. Adrian was silent for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, the endgame is consolidation. Control. I'm trying to build something legitimate out of the empire my family created. But the old guard doesn't want change. And my competitors see any weakness as an opportunity. And I'm supposed to make you look stable, human. You do make me look human. His voice was soft. The question is whether you actually make me feel it. My heart did something complicated in my chest. Do I? He looked at me then, really looked, and I saw past the masks for just a moment. saw exhaustion, and something that might have been longing and a loneliness so deep it echoed. I don't know, he admitted. I've spent so long being what I need to be that I've forgotten what I am. Before I could stop myself, I reached out and took his hand, the one with the scar, the one he rubbed when he was thinking. His fingers closed around mine reflexively. Maybe that's something we figure out together, I heard myself say. Adrian's thumb brushed over my knuckles, the gesture so gentle it made me ache. You should hate me. I probably should, I agreed. But I don't. The truth of it hung between us, like a confession. Then Adrian stepped back, breaking the contact, the walls slamming back into place. It's late. You should sleep. He walked away before I could respond, leaving me alone on the terrace where I'd saved his life, wondering what the hell I was doing falling for the man who'd bought me like property. The next morning, everything felt different. Adrian was gone before I woke. Business in the city, Elena said, and I was left with my thoughts and the memory of his hand in mine. I tried to study. Managed maybe 20 minutes before my mind wandered. Tried to call my mother but couldn't get through the lies anymore. Tried to read, to walk, to do anything that would distract me from the truth I didn't want to face. I was falling for him. The Mafia boss. My husband. The man who'd manipulated me into this marriage and then somehow become the most real thing in my life. I was an idiot. That afternoon, restless and desperate for something productive, I asked Elena if there was a library where I could actually work. She led me to a room I hadn't seen before, massive, lined floor to ceiling with books, with a desk by the window that overlooked the gardens. This was Mr. Moretti's study, she said. But he doesn't use it much anymore. I'm sure he wouldn't mind. After she left, I explored. The books were an eclectic mix: business texts, philosophy, classic literature in multiple languages. On the desk, I found a photo frame turned face down. Curiosity one. I turned it over. A younger Adrian, maybe 20, standing beside an older man with the same steel eyes. His father, maybe? Or the uncle who'd raised him. Both of them were smiling, but there was something haunted in Adrian's expression even then. I was so focused on the photo I didn't hear the door open. Find anything interesting? I spun. Adrian stood in the doorway, still in his suit from the city, watching me with an unreadable expression. I'm sorry, Elena said. I could work in here. I wasn't snooping, it's fine. He moved into the room, glancing at the photo in my hands. My uncle. He died 5 years ago. I'm sorry. Don't be. He was a bastard. Adrian took the frame from me, studied it for a moment, then set it back face down. But he taught me everything I know, for better or worse. The family business, among other things. He moved to the window, hands in his pockets, silhouetted against the afternoon light. He used to say emotions were weakness, that caring about people gave them power over you. He built an empire on that philosophy. Do you believe that? I used to. Adrian glanced back at me. Now I'm not so sure. The weight of what he wasn't saying pressed down on me. I should leave. Give him space. Instead, I moved closer. What changed? You ask a lot of questions. You don't answer many of them. His almost smile appeared. No. I suppose I don't. He turned fully to face me. You changed things, Lena. You weren't supposed to matter. This was a transaction, mutually beneficial arrangement. But you? His phone buzzed. He checked it, and I watched his expression go from open to locked down in seconds. I have to go. Emergency. He headed for the door, then paused. Lena? Lock yourself in your suite tonight. Don't open the door for anyone but me or Marcus. Fear spiked through me. What's happening? I don't know yet. But I need you safe while I figure it out. Then he was gone, and I was alone with a face-down photograph and the echo of words he hadn't quite said. I obeyed his instructions. Locked myself in my suite, tried to eat dinner, couldn't manage more than a few bites. Outside my windows, I could see increased security guards moving in patterns, lights sweeping the grounds. Something was happening. Something bad. At midnight, my phone, the one Adrian had given me, rang. Lena. His voice was rough, tired. Are you locked in? Yes. What's going on? Stay there, I'll explain in the morning. I just needed to know you're safe. Adrian. I have to go. Lock the bedroom door too. Don't come out until I come get you. He hung up before I could argue. I didn't sleep. I sat in my bed, fully dressed, the phone clutched in my hand, listening to the house, settle and imagining threats in every sound. Around 3 a.m., I heard raised voices somewhere below. Footsteps running. A door slamming. Then silence. The kind of silence that screamed. At dawn, someone knocked. I was on my feet instantly, heart hammering. Lena. It's me. Adrian's voice. I unlocked the doors with shaking hands. He looked like he'd been through hell, suit rumpled, tie gone, blood on his shirt that made my medical training kick in before my fear could. Are you hurt? It's not mine. He moved past me into the room, sank onto the sofa like his strings had been cut. God, what a fucking night. I closed the doors and came to kneel in front of him. Tell me. Someone tried to breach the property. Hit the east gate with 4 men. My security stopped them, but he scrubbed his hands over his face. They had pictures of you, Lena. Floor plans of the house with your suite marked. They weren't here for me. The words hit like physical blows. They were coming for me? To take you. Leverage against me. His hands dropped, and his eyes met mine, raw, furious, and underneath it all, afraid. I almost lost you before he stopped himself. Before you'd even what? He looked at me for a long moment. Then he reached out and cupped my face in his blood-stained hands, and I should have pulled away, but I couldn't move. Before I'd admitted that somewhere along the way, this stopped being an arrangement, he said quietly. You stopped being a transaction. And that terrifies me more than any enemy I've ever faced. My breath caught. Adrian, I know. I have no right. You're here because I backed you into a corner, and I'm the last person you should trust, but Lena. His thumb brushed my cheek. I need you to know that I will burn this entire world down before I let anyone hurt you. That's not part of the contract. That's just truth. I should have been smart. Should have protected myself. Instead, I leaned forward and kissed him. For a heartbeat, Adrian went perfectly still. Then his hands tightened on my face, and he kissed me back like I was air and he'd been drowning. It was desperate and searching, and nothing like the brief press of lips at our wedding. This was real, raw. A confession written in touch instead of words. When we finally broke apart, both breathless, Adrian rested his forehead against mine. This is a terrible idea, he murmured. Probably the worst I've ever had. You should run from me. Too late for that. He actually laughed, a rough, broken sound. Yeah, too late. We stayed like that for a long moment, breathing the same air, balanced on the edge of something we couldn't take back. Then, Adrian's phone buzzed. Reality crashed back in. I have to handle this, he said, pulling back. But Lena, we're not done with this conversation. No, I agreed. We're not. He stood, moved to the door, then looked back. For what it's worth, I'm glad it was you. If I had to be stuck in an arranged marriage with anyone, I'm glad it was you. After he left, I touched my lips and tried to remember why falling for Adrian Moretti was supposed to be a bad idea. I couldn't think of a single reason that mattered anymore. The next few days were tense but strangely intimate. Adrian was buried in damage control, interrogating his security team, tracking the attackers, tightening the fortress around us. But every night, he came to my suite. Sometimes we talked. Sometimes we just sat in comfortable silence. Once, he fell asleep on my sofa, and I covered him with a blanket and watched him sleep, this dangerous man who'd somehow become my person. But beneath the tentative connection, unease grew. I started noticing things, hushed conversations that stopped when I entered rooms, Elena's worried glances, the way certain staff avoided meeting my eyes. Something was being kept from me. I tried asking Adrian, but he deflected with the skill of someone practiced in evasion. It's complicated. I'm handling it. Trust me. But trust required honesty, and I was starting to suspect there was something he wasn't telling me. Something big. My chance to find out came when Adrian left for an overnight business trip to New York. I hated that he was going, hated the distance. But it also gave me an opportunity. That night, after the house settled into sleep, I did something stupid. I went to the East Wing. The lock on the main door was electronic, but I'd watched enough staff members punch in codes that I had a few guesses. Third try, the light flashed green. The East Wing was darker than the rest of the house, the air different. Colder. I moved through it with my phone flashlight, heart hammering, until I found what had to be Adrian's office. Also locked. But this one was old-fashioned, a key lock. I'd seen a ring of keys in the housekeeper's office earlier. If I could just 20 minutes later, I was inside. Adrian's office was exactly what I'd expected: massive desk, wall of monitors showing security feeds, shelves of files and ledgers. I didn't have much time. I started searching. The first drawer, financial records. Legitimate business stuff, as far as I could tell. Second drawer, contracts, agreements, letters from lawyers. Third drawer, locked. Of course. I found a letter opener, jimmied the lock with shaking hands. Inside, a single file, with my name on it. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were documents I'd never seen: background checks on me and my family going back years. Medical records. Photographs from college I didn't remember being taken. Financial statements. And underneath it all, a contract, not the marriage contract I'd signed. This one was older, dated 6 months before I'd ever heard of Adrian Moretti. An agreement between Adrian and... I didn't recognize the name, but the terms made my blood run cold. Subject: acquisition. Medical background required. Clean record essential. Compensation: $500,000. I wasn't chosen for legitimacy. I was bought for a specific purpose. And underneath everything, a medical file. Not mine, someone else's. With a note in Adrian's handwriting: genetic compatibility, 94%. Proceed with arrangement. The words blurred. Genetic compatibility. Medical background. They didn't need me as a wife. They needed me as a donor. Or something worse. I was still staring at the file when I heard footsteps in the hallway. I shoved everything back, tried to lock the drawer, but my hands were shaking too badly. The footsteps were getting closer. I grabbed my phone and ran for the door, and collided with Adrian in the hallway. He was supposed to be in New York. His eyes went from me to his office door still ajar, and I watched understanding and fury flash across his face. What the hell are you doing here? I couldn't answer. Couldn't breathe. Lena, my office. What did you see? What am I? The words ripped out of me. What did you really need me for? Adrian's expression shuddered completely. Go back to your suite. We'll talk about this in the morning. No. We'll talk about it now. What's genetic compatibility? What's the medical file? Why was I really chosen? Lena, tell me. I was shouting now, months of fear and confusion and betrayal pouring out. Tell me why you really married me. What do you need from me? Adrian stared at me for a long moment. Then he stepped back, opening his office door wider. Fine. You want the truth? Come get it. I followed him inside, my whole body shaking. He pulled the file from the drawer, the one I'd been reading, and dropped it on the desk between us. My uncle died of a genetic disorder, rare, untreatable, and hereditary. His voice was flat, clinical. I have it too. 5 years, maybe 10, before symptoms start. After that, it's a slow deterioration. Body and mind. The medical file, his uncle. The genetic tests. I needed someone with specific markers. Someone whose genetic profile might help researchers develop a treatment. Someone smart enough to understand the medical implications, but desperate enough not to ask too many questions. He looked at me, and his eyes were empty. That was you, Lena. Perfect match. Perfect target. I felt something break inside me. So what, you married me to use me as a lab rat? To harvest my DNA? To save my life, he corrected. Your blood, your genetic material, your medical insight, they're helping researchers develop a cure. You weren't supposed to know. You were supposed to play the happy wife, give samples when asked, and never realize you were part of a clinical trial. That's insane. I couldn't find words. You used me. Yes. The admission was worse than a lie. I grabbed the desk to stay upright. Everything. Every moment it was all to get my DNA. At first, he moved around the desk, and I saw something crack in his composure. But Lena, listen, no. I backed toward the door. No, I'm done listening. I'm done being your experiment. It's not like that anymore. What you caught feelings. I laughed, and it sounded broken. That's supposed to make this better? You manipulated me, used my family's suffering, married me under false pretenses to survive. Adrian's control snapped. I'm dying, Lena. I have maybe 5 years before I lose everything, my mind, my body, my empire. I did what I had to do to have a chance at a future. Yes, I used you. Yes, I'm a bastard. But at least I'm an honest bastard now. Honest? You've lied to me since the moment we met. And you saved my life anyway. He closed the distance between us. That night in the garden you could have let me die. Your problems would have been solved, but you screamed a warning and saved me. Why? Because I'm not like you. I don't let people die when I can help them. Even people who've used you? Even people who don't deserve it? The question hung between us like a blade. I don't know anymore, I whispered. I don't know anything anymore. Adrian reached for me, then stopped himself. Lena, I'm sorry. For all of it. If I could go back and do it differently. But you can't. I pulled the wedding ring from my finger, the platinum band that had felt like a shackle from day one. I want out. I want the marriage annulled. I want my life back. I want you can't leave. The words were so quiet, I almost missed them. Watch me, Lena. Adrian's eyes held mine, and they were full of something that looked like desperation. If you leave now, without protection, my enemies will find you. They know your name, your face, your family. The moment you step outside these walls, you become a target. Then I'll take my chances. Don't be stupid. Stupid? Fury burned through the betrayal. I was stupid to trust you. I was stupid to think any of this was real. I was stupid too. I stopped myself. To what? He moved closer. To kiss me? To let yourself feel something? To fall for you. The admission cost me everything. I was stupid enough to fall for the man who bought me like property. How's that for genetic compatibility? Adrian looked like I'd struck him. Lena, save it. I headed for the door. I'll stay until the contract term is up. I'll give you whatever samples you need for your research. But we're done. No more dinners. No more pretending. I'll play the wife for the public. That's all. What if I don't want that? I stopped, hand on the doorframe. What you want stopped mattering the moment you lied to me. I walked out and didn't look back. That night, I packed a bag. I knew I couldn't leave. He was right about the danger, but I could prepare. Plan. The moment the contract was up, I'd disappear. New city, new name, new life. Away from Adrian Moretti and his dying legacy and the beautiful lies he'd wrapped me in. I lay in bed, dry-eyed and numb, watching dawn creep across the ceiling. Somewhere in this massive house, Adrian was probably doing the same. Two people trapped in a cage of his design, finally being honest about the bars. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Looking for the truth? Meet me at the corner of Oak and 5th tomorrow, 2 p.m. Come alone. I know what he's planning. I should have deleted it. Should have told Adrian, shown security. Instead, I saved the number and tried to figure out which was worse, the devil I knew or the devil I didn't. By morning, I'd made my choice. I was going to that meeting. Even if it killed me.